The Galactic Council chamber buzzed with tension. Representatives from 100 different species shifted uncomfortably in their seats, appendages twitching and tendrils curling. At the center of the room, two figures stood facing each other. Ambassador Elena Chen of Earth and High Emissary Zlix of the Vexari Collective. Elena's heart raced, but she kept her expression neutral. This was not how she had envisioned her first major diplomatic mission going. The Vexari, a species of crystalline beings known for their logic and adherence to protocol, had always been difficult to negotiate with. But today, something was different. Something was very wrong. You deny these accusations, Ambassador Chen. Zlix's multifaceted eyes glinted dangerously in the chamber's soft light. I deny them categorically, Elena replied, her voice steady. Earth has always valued its alliance with the Vexari Collective. We would never engage in the actions you're describing. The accusation was as unexpected as it was serious. The Vexari claimed that human ships had been detected in a restricted zone of Vexari space, extracting rare minerals vital to their species' survival. If true, it would be a grave violation of interstellar law and a breach of the trust that had taken decades to build. But Elena knew it couldn't be true. Earth's policy on resource extraction was clear and strictly enforced. No human ship would dare violate Vexari territory, let alone engage in illegal mining operations. Zlix's crystalline form shimmered, a sign of agitation in their species. We have sensor data, Ambassador. The energy signatures match your vessels precisely. Elena's mind raced. Energy signatures could be faked, but the Vexari were masters of technology. If they said they had evidence, it would be compelling. But how? And why would someone go to such lengths to frame Earth? High Emissary, Elena said, choosing her words carefully. I respectfully request access to this sensor data. If there's been a misunderstanding, we need to get to the bottom of it together. Zlix's form stilled, considering. After a moment that felt like an eternity, they nodded. Very well. We will provide the data. But be warned, Ambassador. If we find that Earth has been duplicitous, the consequences will be severe. As the council chamber erupted into murmurs and discussions, Elena felt the weight of the galaxy on her shoulders. She had 48 hours to prove Earth's innocence, or the carefully constructed peace between their species would crumble. Back at the Earth Embassy, Elena pored over the sensor data with her team. Dr. Raj Patel, Earth's leading genotechnologist, frowned at the holographic displays. It doesn't make sense, he muttered. These are definitely Earth signatures, but look at the propulsion patterns. They're off. Elena leaned in, her brow furrowed. Off how? Raj manipulated the display, zooming in on a particular section. Human ships have a unique rhythm to their engine pulses. It's like a fingerprint. These are close, but not quite right. It's as if someone studied our ships intensely, but didn't quite get all the details. A chill ran down Elena's spine. You're saying these aren't our ships at all. They're fakes. Raj nodded slowly. Incredibly good fakes, but fakes nonetheless. The question is, who has the technology and motivation to pull off something like this? As they debated possibilities, a junior diplomat burst into the room, his face pale. Ambassador, you need to see this. He pulled up a news feed on the main screen. Elena's heart sank as she read the headline. Human exhilarating is VEXARI outpost attacked. The report claimed that a Vexari research station had been destroyed by what appeared to be human warships. Casualties were reported, and the Vexari were calling for immediate sanctions against Earth. This is impossible, Elena whispered. We don't even have ships in that sector. But the footage seemed damning. Vessels bearing Earth insignias fired upon the helpless outpost, reducing it to rubble. The galaxy was watching, and Earth was being painted as the aggressor. Elena knew she had to act fast. With tensions rising and the threat of war looming, she needed to find a way to prove Earth's innocence and uncover the true culprits behind these attacks. She turned to her team, determination blazing in her eyes. We need to think outside the box. The normal diplomatic channels aren't going to cut it this time. We need to show the Vexari and the rest of the galaxy who we really are. Dr. Patel raised an eyebrow. What do you have in mind? Elena smiled, an idea forming. The Vexari value logic and evidence above all else, right? So let's give them something they can't ignore. We're going to need our best scientists, our most creative thinkers, and... She paused, her smile widening. A crash course in Vexari culture. As her team looked at her in confusion, Elena began to outline her plan. It was risky, unconventional, and might just get them all fired. But if it worked, it could not only save the Alliance but strengthen it in ways no one had thought possible. Little did Elena know that her actions over the next few days would not only change the relationship between humans and Vexari, but would set a new standard for interstellar diplomacy across the galaxy. As night fell on the diplomatic quarter, lights burned bright in the Earth Embassy. Elena and her team worked tirelessly, knowing that with each passing hour, the threat of war grew closer. But amidst the tension and fear, there was also a spark of excitement. They were about to attempt something never before seen in galactic diplomacy. Tomorrow, they would present their case to the Vexari. And if Elena was right, it would be a presentation the crystalline beings would never forget. The Vexari High Council chamber was a marvel of crystalline architecture, its faceted walls refracting light in mesmerizing patterns. Ambassador Elena Chen stood at the center, her team behind her, facing the assembled Vexari leadership. High emissaries Lix sat at the head of the council, their multifaceted eyes unreadable. You claim to have evidence that will exonerate your species, Ambassador Chen. Zlix's voice resonated through the chamber. Present it. Elena took a deep breath. This was it. Everything hinged on the next few moments. Honorable Vexari, she began, we come before you not just to present evidence, but to share an experience. We believe that to truly understand each other, we must do more than exchange data. We must exchange perspectives. She nodded to Dr. Raj Patel, who stepped forward with a device that looked like a cross between a projector and a kaleidoscope. This, Elena continued, is what we call the empathy engine. It's a technology we've developed to bridge the gap between different species' perceptions of reality. The Vexari Council members shifted, their crystalline forms catching the light in curious patterns. Elena could sense their interest piqued. With your permission, she said, addressing Zlix directly, we'd like to use this device to show you not just what happened, but how we, as humans, experience and interpret these events. Zlix considered for a moment, then nodded. Proceed. Dr. Patil activated the empathy engine, and the chamber was suddenly filled with a swirling vortex of light and sensation. The Vexari found themselves experiencing the events of the past few days through human senses. They felt the shock and disbelief at being accused of violating Vexari space. They experienced the confusion and determination as Elena and her team pored over the sensor data. They sensed the rising panic as news of the attack on the Vexari outpost broke. But more than that, they felt the deep-seated human emotions that drove these reactions. The Vexari, used to cold logic, were suddenly awash in a sea of empathy, curiosity, and an unwavering desire for peace. As the experience ended, the chamber fell silent. The Vexari Council members seemed to be processing what they had just felt. Elena held her breath, hoping they had made the right decision. Finally, Zlix spoke. This experience was most illuminating, Ambassador Chen. We had not considered the emotional context of these events. However, while it provides insight into your species' motivations, it does not conclusively prove your innocence. Elena nodded, having anticipated this response. You're absolutely right, High Emissary. That's why we've prepared a second demonstration. She gestured, and a team of human engineers wheeled in a large, complex machine. This, Elena explained, is a quantum resonance analyzer. It's capable of detecting the unique subatomic signatures left behind by different types of propulsion systems. Dr. Patel stepped forward again. We've calibrated this device to differentiate between genuine human engine signatures and the close imitations seen in the sensor data you provided. With your permission, we'd like to analyze the debris from the attacked outpost. The Vexari Council conferred briefly before Zlix gave their assent. We will allow this analysis, but it will be conducted under strict Vexari supervision. Over the next few hours, the human team worked alongside Vexari scientists, scanning debris and analyzing data. The chamber hummed with activity, the two species working together in a way they never had before. As the final results came in, Dr. Patel's face lit up. We've got it. The quantum signatures don't match genuine human technology. They're incredibly close, but there are subtle differences that our analyzer can detect. Alina turned to the Vexari Council, her heart pounding. High Emissary, honored council members, these results prove that the ships that violated your space and attacked your outpost were not of human origin. They were incredibly sophisticated imitations, but imitations nonetheless. The council chamber erupted into a flurry of crystalline, chiming as the Vexari discussed among themselves. Alina and her team waited, the tension palpable. Finally, Zlix raised a limb for silence. Ambassador Chen, your evidence is compelling. We acknowledge that Earth is not responsible for these attacks. However, this raises a more troubling question. Who is? Alina nodded gravely. That's precisely what we need to figure out together. Someone out there has technology advanced enough to nearly perfectly mimic our ships, and they're trying to drive a wedge between our species. We believe this threat concerns not just humans and Vexari, but potentially the entire galactic community. Zlix's crystalline form shimmered in what Alina had come to recognize as agreement. We concur. This situation requires further investigation and cooperation between our species. A wave of relief washed over Alina, but she knew their work was far from over. High Emissary, if I may make a suggestion, I believe this crisis presents an opportunity. An opportunity to not just clear up this misunderstanding, but to forge a deeper alliance between our peoples. She paused, gathering her thoughts. Humans have a saying. The best way to understand someone is to walk a mile in their shoes. We've shown you a glimpse of how we see the world. Now we'd like to propose a cultural exchange program, a chance for humans and Vexari to truly understand each other's perspectives. The Vexari Council seemed intrigued. Zlix leaned forward slightly. Explain this program, Ambassador. Alina smiled, her excitement growing. We propose a series of immersive experiences, humans living among Vexari and Vexari among humans, not just diplomats and scientists, but people from all walks of life. Artists, teachers, workers, will learn each other's languages, customs, and ways of thinking. And in doing so, we'll build a foundation of understanding that no outside force can shake. The chamber filled with the musical chiming of Vexari discussion. Alina waited, her heart racing. She knew she was proposing something radical, something that had never been attempted on this scale before. After what felt like an eternity, Zlix spoke. Your proposal is unprecedented, Ambassador Chen. It will require careful planning and consideration. However, we are intrigued by the potential benefits of such an exchange. Alina felt a surge of hope. It wasn't a yes, but it wasn't a no either. Of course, High Emissary, we're prepared to work closely with your team to develop a detailed plan that ensures the safety and comfort of all participants. As the meeting concluded, Alina felt a mix of exhaustion and exhilaration. They had averted war, cleared Earth's name, and potentially opened the door to a new era of human-Vexari relations. But she knew the real work was just beginning. As she and her team left the council chamber, Dr. Patel leaned in. That was brilliant, Alina. But do you really think this cultural exchange will work? Our species are so different. Alina smiled, her eyes twinkling with determination. That's exactly why it has to work, Raj. Our differences are our strength. And who knows, by learning to bridge the gap between humans and Vexari, we might just figure out who's behind these attacks. As they stepped out into the alien sunlight, Alina felt a sense of possibility she hadn't experienced since her first days in the diplomatic corps. The path ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear: the adventure was just beginning. 6 months had passed since the tense confrontation in the Vexari High Council chamber. The Galactic News Network's holographic display flickered to life in living rooms and public spaces across 1,000 worlds, showing a smiling human reporter standing next to a shimmering Vexari. "Good evening, Galaxy. I'm Sarah Chen, reporting live from New Shanghai on Earth, where the groundbreaking Human Vexari Cultural Exchange Program has just entered its second phase. With me is Zixrel, a Vexari artist who has been living and working on Earth for the past 3 months. Zixrel, how would you describe your experience so far?" The Vexari's crystalline form pulsed with soft light as they responded. "It has been illuminating, Sarah. The human concept of art is fascinatingly chaotic. Your species creates not just to convey information, but to evoke emotional responses. It is a practice we Vexari are eager to understand better." As the interview continued, Ambassador Alina Chen watched from her office in the United Earth Embassy on Vexar Prime. A smile played on her lips as she saw humans and Vexari interacting with ease, a sight that would have been unthinkable half a year ago. Her comm unit chimed, and Dr. Raj Patel's face appeared on the screen. "Alina, you need to see this. We've made a breakthrough." Minutes later, Alina stood in the embassy's secure lab, staring at a holographic display of swirling energy patterns. Raj pointed to a particular section, his eyes alight with excitement. "See this? We've been analyzing the quantum signatures from the fake human ships, cross-referencing them with every known propulsion system in the galaxy, and we found a match." Alina leaned in, her heart racing. "Whose technology is it?" Raj's expression turned grim. "That's the thing. It doesn't belong to any current spacefaring race. These signatures match fragmentary data from archaeological sites. We think we're dealing with technology from a species that went extinct over 50,000 years ago." Alina's mind reeled. But how is that possible? Who could be using this ancient tech? Before Raj could answer, alarms blared throughout the embassy. Alina rushed to the command center, where screens showed a massive ship appearing seemingly out of nowhere in orbit around Vexar Prime. "Report," Alina barked. A junior officer responded, her voice shaking. "Ambassador, an unknown vessel just dropped out of some kind of stealth mode. It's huge, bigger than anything we've ever seen, and it's broadcasting a message." "Let's hear it," Alina said, bracing herself. A deep, resonant voice filled the room, speaking in perfect galactic standard. "Greetings, children of the young races. We are the precursors, returned from our long exile. Your petty conflicts and fumbling attempts at diplomacy amuse us. It is time for you to submit to our guidance. Resistance will be met with force." As the message repeated, Alina's mind raced. The precursors, a name whispered in ancient legends across a dozen worlds, a mythical race of advanced beings who had supposedly ascended beyond physical form eons ago. But if this was true, why were they back? And why now? She turned to her team. "Get me a secure line to High Emissary Zlix. Now." Minutes later, Alina and Zlix were in an emergency conference, their holograms facing each other in a virtual space. "This threat concerns all of us," Alina said. "Human, Vexari, and every other species in the galaxy. We need to stand united." Zlix's crystalline form shimmered with agitation. "Agreed, Ambassador. But how can we hope to face a species so technologically advanced? The ship they have revealed is beyond anything in our combined fleets." Alina's mind flashed back to the cultural exchange program, to the progress they had made in understanding each other. "We fight them with the one thing they don't expect: our diversity, our different ways of thinking, our unique approaches to problem solving. That's our strength." Over the next hours, as the precursor ship loomed ominously in orbit, Elena and Slicks coordinated a galaxy-wide response. Ships from a dozen species converged on Vexor Prime, not as an armada, but as a diplomatic delegation. Elena stood on the bridge of the Earth flagship, surrounded by a mix of human and Vexari officers. The view screen showed a dizzying array of ships from across the galaxy, sleek Arcturian cruisers, bioluminescent Zygon spheres, even the rarely seen void dancers of the nth dimension. "Open a channel to the precursor vessel," Elena commanded. The face that appeared on the screen was unsettling, vaguely humanoid, but with an otherworldly quality that sent shivers down Elena's spine. The being spoke, its voice resonating at a frequency that seemed to bypass her ears and speak directly to her mind. "You dare to challenge us? We who seeded the stars with life, we who guided the evolution of 1,000 worlds." Elena stepped forward, her voice steady. "We're not here to challenge you. We're here to talk, to understand why you've returned, and to find a way for all of us to coexist peacefully." The precursor's expression was unreadable. "Peace? You know nothing of true peace. We have watched your species stumble through history, repeating the same mistakes. It is time for order to be restored." "With all due respect," Elena countered, "I think you've missed some recent developments. Allow us to show you what we've accomplished." At Elena's signal, the combined fleet began transmitting data, not weapon schematics or strategic information, but cultural artifacts. Art from 100 worlds, music that spanned the electromagnetic spectrum, philosophical treatises that grappled with the nature of existence itself. And at the heart of it all, the story of the human Vexari cultural exchange. The precursor watched, its ancient eyes widening as it witnessed two radically different species learning to understand and appreciate each other. Hours passed as the transmission continued. The precursor ship remained silent, processing the vast array of information. Finally, the being spoke again. "This is unexpected. You have achieved a level of cooperation we did not think possible for such young races." Elena smiled. "We're full of surprises, and we're just getting started. There's room in this galaxy for your wisdom, but not for domination. Join us. Learn from us as we learn from you. Together, we can build something greater than any single species could achieve alone." The precursor was silent for a long moment. Then, to everyone's shock, it began to laugh, a sound that reverberated through space itself. "Well played, young ones. Well played indeed. Perhaps we were hasty in our judgment. This new galactic society of yours, it intrigues us. We would like to learn more." As negotiations began in earnest, Elena felt a wave of relief wash over her. They had averted war not through force, but through understanding and creativity. It was a lesson the galaxy wouldn't soon forget. But even as she celebrated this victory, a part of her remained vigilant. The precursor's return had changed everything. The galaxy was entering a new era, filled with both promise and peril. And humanity, with its unique blend of curiosity, empathy, and determination, would play a crucial role in shaping the future that lay ahead. As the diplomatic talks stretched into the night, Elena couldn't help but smile. The adventure, it seemed, was only just beginning. The shuttle glided silently toward the Terran flagship, cutting through the cold vacuum of space. We had been met with nothing but unsettling silence for hours, the vastness of the void amplifying the growing tension. Even as we closed the distance, there were no signs of distress, no warnings, no acknowledgement of our approach. My mind wrestled with a growing sense of dread. What had happened to the Terrans? "Prepare for docking," Dari, our shuttle pilot, announced, her voice tight with concentration. The sleek frame of the Terran ship loomed closer, its hull unmarked by battle or damage. But the silence was unnatural, like a heavy weight pressing down on all of us. Our docking clamps latched onto the airlock, and with a hiss of decompression, we stepped into the dimly lit corridor of the Terran flagship. The atmosphere was thick with tension, as though the ship itself was holding its breath. "Commander," one of the soldiers whispered, "something feels wrong." I couldn't shake the feeling either. The ship was too quiet, too still. We proceeded cautiously, weapons drawn, making our way toward the control deck. The corridor stretched out in front of us, the hum of the ship's systems, the only sound breaking the silence. As we moved deeper into the ship, the sense of something being out of place grew stronger. I glanced at the consoles we passed. Everything was operational, systems running smoothly. Yet, there were no crew members in sight, no signs of life. We reached the command bridge, the heart of the ship. The door slid open with a soft hiss, revealing an empty room. The commander's chair was vacant, the control panels glowing faintly in the dim light. My antenna twitched with unease. Where was everyone? "I don't understand," Derry murmured, scanning the room. "There's no sign of damage, no sign of an attack. But where's the crew?" I moved toward the central console, my fingers hovering over the controls. As I accessed the ship's logs, a chill ran down my spine. The last recorded activity had been nearly 20 hours ago, just routine system checks. After that, nothing. No power surges, no breaches. I muttered to myself, trying to piece together the puzzle. They were here. Everything was normal. Then why would they leave the ship like this? Derry asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I didn't have an answer, but I knew we had to find one. Let's split up. Check the barracks, the engine room, anywhere they might have gone. The team fanned out, their footsteps echoing through the silent corridors. I remained at the console, staring at the ship's logs. Something was missing. Something that would explain why the crew had vanished without a trace. Minutes passed like hours. Then, a voice crackled through the comms. "Commander, you need to see this." I rushed to the location of the transmission, my heart pounding in my chest. When I arrived, I found my team gathered around a massive observation window that overlooked the starboard side of the ship. They were all staring, frozen in place, at what lay outside. It took me a moment to process what I was seeing. Dozens of ships, identical to the Terran fleet, floated lifelessly in space. Their hulls were intact, but like the flagship, there was no sign of life. They drifted in perfect formation, eerily silent. "By the stars," Derry breathed. "What is this?" "It's not just this ship," I whispered, my voice thick with disbelief. "The entire fleet." We were standing in the presence of a ghost fleet. Hundreds of Terran vessels, abandoned, their crews missing without a trace. My mind raced, trying to comprehend the magnitude of what we were seeing. How could an entire fleet be rendered lifeless without a single sign of struggle? Suddenly, the ship's lights flickered, and a low hum resonated through the corridors. My team instinctively raised their weapons, eyes scanning the area for any sign of movement. "Commander," Derry said, her voice tense. "Something's coming." Before I could respond, the air around us seemed to ripple, and a voice, cold, detached, and unlike anything I had ever heard, echoed through the ship's speakers. "You should not have come." Every muscle in my body tensed. "Who is this?" I demanded. The voice ignored my question. "Leave now while you still can. The Terrans are no longer your concern." I exchanged a glance with Dari, my heart racing. This wasn't the Terran crew. Someone, or something, had taken control of the ship. But how? And why? "I'm not leaving until I get answers," I shot back, trying to steady my voice. The voice chuckled softly, a sound that sent chills down my spine. "You're not in a position to demand anything. Turn back, Commander, or you will suffer the same fate as the humans." And then, just as suddenly as it had appeared, the voice was gone, leaving us in the oppressive silence once more. My team looked to me for guidance, fear flickering in their eyes. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to stay calm. "We're not leaving," I said firmly. "Not until we find out what happened here." Derry hesitated but nodded. "Understood, Commander." As we turned to continue our search, a thought gnawed at the back of my mind. Whatever had happened to the Terrans, whatever force was responsible for this, it was still out there. And we were walking right into its grasp. But I couldn't turn back now. We had come too far. "Let's move," I ordered, my resolve hardening. "Stay sharp. We're not alone." And with that, we plunged deeper into the darkness of the Terran flagship, knowing full well that whatever awaited us, it would change everything. The deeper we ventured into the Terran flagship, the heavier the weight of dread became. The silence had morphed from unsettling to oppressive, as if the ship itself was alive and watching us. My team moved with purpose, their weapons drawn, but I could see the tension in their movements, the uncertainty. The strange warning from the disembodied voice echoed in my mind. What could reduce the Terrans to this? What could leave a fleet lifeless and adrift? We approached the engineering sector, the doors sliding open with a faint hiss. The room beyond was expansive, filled with consoles and power grids that thrummed with latent energy, and yet it was empty. No engineers, no crew. Only the steady hum of the ship's systems greeted us. Dari stepped forward, her eyes scanning the vast space. Everything's operational. Engines are running at full capacity, but there's no trace of the crew. "It's like they just disappeared," one of the soldiers muttered under his breath. I moved toward the central terminal, my hands hovering over the controls. As I activated the holographic interface, a series of logs appeared on the screen. I scrolled through them quickly, searching for any anomalies. It wasn't long before I found something that made my blood run cold. "Commander," Dari called from the other side of the room. "You need to see this." I joined her at one of the secondary consoles, where she had pulled up security footage from the hours before the Terran fleet went silent. The video displayed a scene that should have been normal. Engineers going about their work, maintaining the ship's systems. But something was off. The crew members moved as if in a trance, their eyes vacant, their expressions blank. I whispered, watching the footage with growing horror. As we continued watching, the engineers began to stop in their tracks. One by one, they stood still, unmoving, for several seconds. Then, without warning, they all collapsed at once. No struggle, no warning, just sudden, inexplicable collapse. And then, nothing. They didn't get back up. Dari's face was pale. What could do this to an entire crew? And not just here, but across the fleet. I had no answer. But the pieces were starting to fall into place. Something had incapacitated the Terran fleet, something that could turn even the mightiest warships into floating tombs. And if that voice from earlier was to be believed, whatever had done this was still out there, waiting. "We have to get to the core of the ship," I said, my voice filled with grim determination. "If there's anything left of the Terran command structure, it'll be in the central eye." My team nodded, though I could see the fear in their eyes. We were venturing into the heart of the unknown, chasing answers that might well lead to our doom. We made our way toward the central eye chamber, the corridors growing darker and more foreboding the further we went. Every step felt like a descent into something far more dangerous than we had anticipated. When we finally reached the eye chamber, the door was sealed shut, requiring authorization codes that we didn't have. I glanced at Dari, who was already moving toward the manual override. She worked quickly, her fingers flying over the console, and after a few tense moments, the door slid open. Inside, the AI core pulsed with a cold blue light. The chamber was bathed in its glow, casting long shadows across the walls. In the center stood the Terran AI interface, a sleek, humanoid figure made of shimmering light and metal. But something was wrong. The AI's eyes were dark, its posture unnervingly still. It didn't acknowledge our presence, didn't respond to our arrival. "I-Core," I said, stepping forward cautiously. "This is Commander Vallis of the Thalnar. We are here to assist the Terran fleet. Please respond." For several long seconds, nothing happened. Then, with a soft hum, the AI's eyes flickered to life, glowing with a faint, icy blue light. Its head turned slowly to face me, but its movements were jerky, almost mechanical, far from the fluid grace I had seen in other advanced AIs. "You should not be here," the AI said, its voice flat and emotionless. "We're here to find out what happened to the fleet," I replied firmly. "The crew is gone, and we've been receiving strange warnings." "What caused this?" The AI's head tilted slightly, its eyes narrowing. "The crew was compromised." "Compromised?" Derry echoed. "How?" The AI's gaze seemed to pierce through us. An external force infiltrated the fleet. It disabled the crew and assumed control of key systems. "The Terran command structure has been eradicated." "An external force," I repeated, my mind racing. "What kind of force? Another species? A weapon?" The AI paused for a moment, as if considering how much to reveal. "Not a species, not a weapon, a singular entity, an anomaly." I exchanged a glance with Dari. "Explain." "The anomaly originated from beyond Terran space," the AI continued. "It does not belong to any known civilization. It is older." "Older?" I felt a chill run down my spine. "Older than what?" "Older than your understanding. Older than the stars you see in the sky." The weight of the AI's words sank in, and I struggled to comprehend what it was telling us. Something ancient, something beyond our comprehension, had infiltrated the Terran fleet, and it had done so with a precision and power we couldn't begin to fathom. "What does it want?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. The AI's eyes glowed brighter, its expression unreadable. "It seeks to expand, to consume. The Terrans were merely its first victims. You are next." My heart pounded in my chest. "How do we stop it?" "You cannot." The AI's voice was final, devoid of hope. "It has already taken root in your systems. The moment you docked, it began its work. It will spread, and soon your ship will be as lifeless as this one." Panic surged through me. There has to be a way. "Leave," the AI interrupted, "while you still can. Cut all connections, sever all ties. It is the only way to delay the inevitable." "Delay?" Dari's voice cracked. "You mean there's no way to stop it?" The AI's eyes dimmed slightly, its posture relaxing as though the burden of its knowledge weighed heavily even on its artificial mind. "Not with the technology you possess. Perhaps with time, you may find a way. But not now." I stared at the AI, my mind racing. Whatever this anomaly was, it was beyond us, beyond the Terrans. But leaving now felt like abandoning everything we had worked for. "We can't just leave," I said, my voice shaking. "We need more answers." "You have no more time," the AI said, its voice cold and final. "Leave or be consumed." The lights around us flickered violently, and the ship shuddered as if something immense was stirring deep within its core. "Commander," Dari urged, her voice trembling, "we need to go. Now." I hesitated for a moment longer, staring into the AI's glowing eyes. Then, with a heavy heart, I gave the order. "Fall back. We're leaving." As we turned and ran toward the shuttle bay, I couldn't shake the feeling that we had just encountered something far more dangerous than we could ever understand. And as the ship's systems began to flicker and fade behind us, I knew that whatever this ancient force was, it wasn't done with us yet.